Okay, the short version of the developmental models for 202. So what we're looking at here, cell to embryo model. For this one, again, normal structures of the uterus and the internal female anatomy. For here, we're looking at same thing as we saw on the reproductive plaque, where we saw the oocyte with the zona pellucidum and the corona radiata outside. Then we're seeing some of the early cell stages, including, I think, the blastocyst here or the morula. Depends on what the key says. But the good thing about this last section is that we usually have the keys and the photographs of these models in the lab manual. So not a lot of question about what it's asking for. Now, one thing about this model here, and this in particular, this part of it, is that while we have the early embryo here, these two parts represent the yolk sac and the amnion. But I would say that we would not ask those parts on this model because it logically would make sense that this would be the yolk sac down here and this would be the amnion, but they actually have it reversed. So on the, I think it's the SOMSO models, it's actually correct where the yolk sac is yellow and the amnion is pink. So we will do those two structures on the SOMSO actual 3D models as opposed to this plaque instead. Everything else is going to remain the same. Alright, we saw the menstrual cycle one. We saw the 4-month fetus one, counting back from 16 weeks every 2 weeks, going down from there. This one is a zoom up of the placenta detail that we see for the full-term fetus. The key here is just seeing the 2 umbilical arteries going out, the 1 umbilical vein coming back in, the chorionic villi, the tree-like structures, as we see here, as well as the maternal blood pool that we see around it. That's where the exchange of nutrients, waste products, oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc. are going to occur. This is endometrium through here. And then everything else, as we've been seeing, is going to be the same. Female reproductive structures, placenta, amnion, things like that. This is a SOMSO model of the fetal circulation. We've got a list of structures that we need to know for this on that extra handout. Mainly we have the umbilical arteries and the umbilical vein. Here are the umbilical arteries here coming off of the internal iliac artery. Then here is the umbilical vein going to be coming back in. Now, this extension that we see here and then bypassing the liver is called the ductus venosus because it's a vein that is going back towards the heart. There's also going to be a ductus arteriosus in here, which is connecting the arch of the aorta to the pulmonary trunk. We'll also see the foramen ovale between the 2 atria through there. So there's a few differences in terms of the fetal reproductive, I'm sorry, not the fetal reproductive, but the female cardiovascular system comparatively. And then here's the rest of that chart. And here we see the placenta detail here, and you can see the blood vessels, again, the umbilical arteries going out and the umbilical vein coming back. With these models here, with the 3B developmental models, the great thing about these is that the list that we give out to the students has all the numbers of the structures already listed, and those numbers and those structures are the same throughout all the different developmental models. So you can see the placenta is going to develop here, and we see it numbered the same here. The uterine tubes are going to have the same number, the ovaries, the cervix down here, etc. So very easy to go through there. So again, all the numbers carry through there. Then we can move forward through some of the reproductive models. This is the 3B set of models that we were talking about, and only the ones listed on the handout for the developmental models are the ones that we would worry about, but they're pretty easy. So again, here is the oocyte, the zona pellucidum, the corona radiata. This represents the sperm cell with the acrosome at the top. 1 cell stage, 2 cell stage, 4 cell stage, basically a morula here, a solid ball of cells. And then as we get into these later ones here, this is what I was talking about in terms of yolk sac here, and then amnion over here. The other thing we see are the chorionic villi, like we saw on the other model. And then we see structures that are either layers of the different layers of surrounding the developing embryo. So we see, and here, a clock telling us that it's time to learn about the Decidua capsularis, which forms a capsule over the developing embryo, and then the Decidua basalis that would be on this side. So this is kind of the base, if you will, where the chorionic villi would be. And this is the capsule, in essence, that kind of grows over it. So easy to kind of tell. You can see that there's a color difference between the two as well. And that should do it for our different reproductive and development models.